Now, what if the reason that your life feels unfinished is because God is still writing? Maybe you thought the habit would be broken, that the door would be open, that relationships would be restored, and that the pain would finally be behind you. But instead, you feel stuck in the middle of a story that no longer makes sense. But can I tell you something? Don't put a period where God has placed a comma. See, I believe the next few minutes could change the way you see your entire life. So in this video, I'm going to share with you why this season feels so heavy, how God works through unfinished places, what scripture says, and 3 practical steps that will help you to keep moving forward, even when you can't see the full picture. So let's get into it. Now, one of the most difficult places to be in is between what God promised and what you currently see, especially when you know God has more for you, but the circumstances don't reflect it. Like you know God brought you too far to go back, but you still don't feel like you've arrived. Like nobody talks about the in-between moment. The middle place can be frustrating. I'm talking about the days where you praying but you don't feel nothing. The days where you do everything that you know to do, but the door still hasn't opened. You look at other people and it seems as though their lives are moving while yours is standing still. They're celebrating engagements, new homes, new businesses, and answered prayers. And meanwhile, you're trying to survive another day without losing your faith. But hear me when I say this. Slow progress is not the absence of God's presence. See, just because you can't see God working doesn't mean he has stopped working. And some of the greatest work happens beneath the surface. So your life may look quiet right now, but quiet doesn't mean empty. Listen to what scripture tells us in Philippians 1:6. It says, "And I am certain that God, who begins the good work within you, will continue his work until it's finally finished on the day when Jesus Christ returns." Now, Paul says, "I am certain," not "I hope." See, Paul's confidence was not in the strength of the people. His confidence was in the faithfulness of God. He says, God, who begins a good work within you. That means the completion of your story doesn't rest entirely on your ability. And the same God who started the work is committed to completing the work. So you may have a moment of weakness, but God's strength has not changed. But notice the verse doesn't say God will continue to work only when you feel strong. See, sometimes God removes what's comfortable so he can reveal what's controlling you. And I know some of you are like, but what do I do when his work feels like breaking than building? Well, listen to what it says in Romans 8:28. It says, "And we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them." See, God can take the broken pieces of your story and still create something that reveals his glory. So your pain doesn't get the final word, not even your worst decisions. God does. And the reason why I know this is because he personally did this in my life. My marriage was falling apart. There were seasons where we experienced foreclosures and had to stretch everything that we had. We only could afford peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And on the outside, I knew how to look strong. But there was places inside of me that just couldn't heal. And when you have struggled for a long period of time, you can begin to believe the struggle is your identity. You stop saying, I'm dealing with this, and you start believing this is simply who I am. But God didn't look at the worst version of me and say, I'm finished with you. So instead of walking away, God stepped into my mess and began rebuilding my life. But it didn't happen overnight. See, there was plenty of moments of falling and getting back up. But little by little, God began restoring what life tried to destroy. And that's why I can tell you with conviction, your worst chapter doesn't have the authority to write the ending of your story. And some of you are judging your life while God is still renovating it. You see, God is calling you under construction, and you're looking at what he removed and thinking you lost something. But stop judging the finished works by the appearance of the construction site. So I know you might be asking, like, what do I do when God is not finished, but I still feel discouraged? So I want to give you 3 practical steps that I'm confident will help. But here's what I need you to understand. They're all decisions that you have to make. So step 1, stop calling this chapter the end. You see, a chapter is a part of a story, but it's not the entire story. You may be in a chapter of grief, but grief is not your identity. You may be in a chapter of healing, but your wounds is not your identity. See, Peter denied Jesus 3 times, but denial wasn't the end of his story. So your current environment doesn't determine your final identity. So stop saying, this is just who I am, and start saying, This is where I am, but God is still taking me somewhere. Step number 2, give God something to work with today. See, sometimes we become so focused on the unfinished work that we overlook today's step. You may not be able to fix everything today, but you can obey God today. You can pray today. You can ask for help today. You can take one step towards the person God is calling you to become. You see, God often gives direction one step at a time. And Psalms 119 says it best. Your word is a lamp to guide my feet and a light for my path. You see, a lamp doesn't always show the entire road. It gives you just enough light to see the next step. So stop determining your entire blueprint before you're willing to obey the next instructions. See, you don't have to know everything God is going to do. You just need to have faith that he's going to take you there today. See, small obedience repeated constantly can produce a transformed life. And step number 3, remember the faithfulness of God. You see, this one has been so beneficial for my life. You see, when you can't trace God's hands, remember his history. Look back at the things that he's already brought you through. And I'm sure there were days that you thought you wouldn't survive, but you're still here. There were moments that you thought you would be destroyed, but somehow God sustained you. So the same God who carried you then is still carrying you now. So keep a record of his faithfulness. Write down prayers that he answered. Write down the moments that he provided. Because when the enemy tells you that God has abandoned you, you now have evidence that God has still been faithful. See, your feelings may change day to day, but the character of God doesn't change. See, Hebrews 13:8 says Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So the same God who started the work is still present in the process. Now, maybe you listening to all of this and you're thinking, I lost so much time, made so many mistakes. But I want to declare over your life today that your story is not over. Your delay is not denial. Your pain will not be wasted. See, what tried to bury you will not have the final word. You see, God is still rebuilding your confidence. He's renewing your mind. He's restoring your identity. So don't quit in the middle. Don't walk away while God is still working. Now, if this message spoke to you, do me a favor. Like the video, subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and share this with someone who feels trapped in the same battle. You never know who might find hope because you click share. And if you're ready to go deeper, I want to encourage you to grab a copy of my book, Never Broken, How God Rebuilds What Life Tries to Shatter. You see, this book is for people who have experienced pain but refuse to believe that the pain gets the final word. The link is in the description below. And always remember, God is not finished with you yet, and your story is not over. Y'all stay blessed.